Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Butterfly Effect podcast. And today we are doing a DPA ranking. It has been a little while, but we wanted to ask which celebrity did it best. So we're talking about Shawn Ashmore from Madan, Will Poulter from Little Hope, Ashley Tisdale from House of Ashes, and Jessie Buckley from The Devil in Me. We're going to go for it in chronological order, and we're going to have our rankings in the top corners of the screen. So, mate, I'll throw it over to you. We'll kick off with Shawn Ashmore, Man of Madan.
So, Shawn Ashmore's performance for me gets the gold medal out of the full spot. So, we're going to start strong out the video. And before I get into the positives, I will start with a little bit of a negative that I don't think any of these characters are really exceeding that 6 or 7 out of 10 realm. Like, none of them I particularly am very fond of, and if I think like sort of gaming character, my mind won't really race to these sort of full characters. But the reason why Conrad is top is not only did I enjoy his performance, but I think he's probably the only celebrity character where I would say he's my favorite out of the playables. We'll get into the other games afterwards, but with Man of Madan, Conrad probably had the most memorable performance. Granted, it might have been a fairly easy task to do because I think Man of Madan might have the poorest ensemble against the other DPA games. But I don't know, he's just quite whimsical, he's quite fun. The flirtatious mannerisms about him, his language, and just the way that, you know, he'll like flaunt and like throw money, you know, to like show off to like the pirates. It did make me chuckle a little bit. Nothing to write home about, but like I say, I just think if you're the strongest out of the 5, I think it will give you bonus points, and he's the only one on this list that personally did that for myself.
And as for me, I have to agree. Shawn Ashmore is or gets the gold medal in my opinion. And yeah, it's really just a follow on from what Liam was saying. I feel like maybe out of all of the 4, potentially he's just the more memorable. I'm like thinking back through his scenes now, and he does get to have a nice, good, you know, variety in there. We've seen the scene where he's fanning the money. We get to see him where he's quite cocky, quite chirpy. He can be quite flirty, and you can even have that scene with Fliss, can't you, where they, you know, have a full-on romance. You do have like the chase sequence where you get to see him obviously show being scared and being vulnerable and such. And yeah, I think it probably helps that he has a cast that surrounds him that are less than to be admired, really. I'd say Brad is perhaps the nearest to him, but even then I think Conrad easily surpasses him. And yeah, I think just overall a very good character, but also even like just like the voice acting, the mocap like I've mentioned. I think Shawn Ashmore just did a good job at playing like the spoilt rich kid that goes on a sort of a boat dive, you know. So yeah, he gets my gold medal. Okay, so we're now going to move on to Little Hope, and at least for me, we are going to move straight down to the bottom of our ranking, because he gets 4th place, Will Poulter, which for me is a big shock, because out of all 4 of them, he's the only one that I actually recognised. I'd seen him in films such as Maze Runner, I'd seen him in like We're the Millers, and he's been a couple of other things as well, and it's just really... I think partly it's hard to ignore that actually it's the writing that comes into play here with him. But again, similar to like Shawn Ashmore of Madan, he doesn't have a fantastic cast around him, but he does get overshadowed by maybe a couple of characters. And like we've said in our analysis, that actually we prefer that the characters from the prologue, and since we are exposed to the modern day version of Anthony, or Andrew I should say, it's just less, it's not a very inspiring performance. I think the character self, sure, he seems fairly level-headed compared to the rest of the bunch, but you know what I was saying about Conrad or Shawn Ashmore, he got to flex a little bit. I don't think we got to see that much variety from him, but I think that's partly as well due to Little Hope. I think Little Hope is incredibly about the story, right? The characters potentially sort of fall by the wayside a little bit, and I feel like he suffers as a result. So yeah, Will Poulter finishes bottom for me.
Yeah, and I'm gonna mirror Jack with this opinion. It is like a 4th place performance for me. And yeah, it surprised me as well, because out of the four, Will Poulter probably is my favourite actor on the list of the characters you are going to see. And I guess it's just surprising because I was just really underwhelmed by the performance. But then again, I do agree with Jack. I don't think it's that much that Will Poulter could have done. We know his acting range, we know his ability and his acumen, and he could have like done a really good performance. But I think maybe the writing didn't allow him to, because at the end of the day, I mean, we've all played the game. We know what his character is. He's someone who's going through like, you know, some trauma, potentially like an injury, concussion, whatever it is. So he obviously plays someone who's quite frazzled, quite vacant, and is typically a more reserved character against his counterparts. So he gets overshadowed a bunch, and he doesn't really have that many memorable scenes or dialogue. So unfortunately, yeah, like if you think, oh, this game I'm going to see Will Poulter's ability, you're not really, and that is unfortunate. So it's nothing against Will Poulter, but yeah, he has to get bottom place on this list. Rachel, like a melody in my head. Okay. So next we're going to move on to House of Ashes. Now the celebrity performance was from none other than Ashley Tisdale. And yeah, so we're going to be looking at Rachel here. Now for me, this character will be getting the bronze medal. Now to be honest, I believe her background is mostly in Disney work, which I'm not really au fait with. The only thing I really think I've seen her in is Donnie Darko, and she has one tiny role in that. So I never really had much affiliation with this actress in the first place, to be honest. Now the performance isn't bad or whatever. I think Rachel is a solid character. Unlike Conrad though, I wouldn't say she's the best in the cast. I got more of a kick out of the scenes with Salim, Jason, potentially Eric as well. I would actually say she's like the fourth strongest out of the five. And yeah, she's a tough cookie. She has like the nicknames like Queen Bitch and stuff. She's clearly quite capable. I do quite like the kind of dynamic of having, you know, like a minority female in like kind of a heavy male industry or kind of like, you know, cast kind of thing, and she holds her own quite a lot. She is fairly quirky, has some cool moments, but to be honest, I just don't see that much more. I know there's a bit of a backstory of like the history of her and Eric, and I know I always mention this, but I do think sometimes when you're placed in a partnership or a couple, it can water you down a little bit because we're not really exploring any other angles. And I do think that Rachel does suffer from that syndrome of, I'm in a love triangle and this is all we're going to really talk about. So she's not a bad character by any means, but for me, it's a bronze medal performance.
As for me, Ashley Tisdale gets the silver medal, although what I would say about the final two characters in this list is that it's a toss-up. Like, it really could have gone either way. Today, for me, she gets the silver medal. I just find her more memorable. I find like it's just talk about the character for a second, because you have got that love triangle. And you know, there's various choices that can come off of that. When I compare to say like you know, Jessie Buckley, she's obviously very Mark driven. But yeah, I think honestly what Liam was saying, I think like she's got quite a lot about her. I think like the downtime that she has with Clarice is a significant moment when she sort of gives a little bit of a background, but she also has moments where she can like go on the minigun, for instance, and she shows that she's very capable in that situation. Some of the more downtimes with like Nick and Eric were like pretty good as well. I would have to agree that I think that on like the, you know, the play, also like the cast in general in House of Ashes, that she would fall down the pecking order a little bit. But for me, she just narrowly gets that silver medal. But yeah, we'll now move on to the next one. So of course, we're now going into the Devil in Me territory, and we're talking about Jessie Buckley. So really just to follow on from what I was saying, I feel like Jessie Buckley slightly hurt by the fact that she was semi in a relationship with Mark. I didn't find that dynamic as interesting. Another thing I want to say as well is that I know that we're not necessarily ranking Paul K here, because like he is a celebrity, but he's not one of the the four faces that you get on the front of the game. But for me, she's overshadowed by him in this instance. Those that follow the channel just know how like big fans we are of Charlie Lonnet. And I can appreciate the attempt of what they were trying to do with like the character, with like that moment where she looks at the newspaper and they give her a bit of backstory to try and flex her character out a bit. But I just struggle, like when I'm comparing the two of like Ashley Tisdale, Jessie Buckley, I'm struggling to find too many more moments where you really get to see a massive range for Jessie Buckley's performance. I think about the glass trap and maybe the heart-to-heart with Mark, and that's sort of it. Whereas I look at, say, Ashley Tisdale, and you've got like the infection bit, you've got the heart-to-hearts, you've got the action scenes. And I just think that she's that little bit more memorable, in my opinion. So while it is close between them two, Jessie Buckley does get the bronze medal for me in the end.
Which obviously for me leaves Jessie Buckley's Kate with the silver medal. And I totally agree with Jack. I often find when I build these lists, I have such an easy time picking like my top place and my bottom place, that realm. But the middle is always a struggle, and it's always such a neck-on-neck battle. And, you know, maybe tomorrow I'll agree with Jack and think that Rachel's actually better than Kate. But in, you know, today I'm going to go with Kate, who just edges it narrowly. So yeah, like, Jack's totally right. I would have liked more from Kate. But there are a few things in there which I do quite like. With the range thing as well, I think maybe my brain just kind of like conjured up and like imagined more Kate's scenes. So I was thinking sort of things like, you know, the bonus ending where she can like, you know, be tied down, and, you know, her screams are like really harrowing if you get that really horrible ending. But there's just a few little bits and pieces in there, like how she uses the crystal to calm herself down. I quite like that. And also we get that element or that one moment where she sees a newspaper and we learn that she's going through PTSD because like her friend passed away when she was in college, and she feels responsible for it. Admittedly, I would have liked to have like dived into that a little bit more, since I think like that was almost like tapping into a potential good character arc, and then we never really touched back on it. So it was a bit of a missed opportunity. But yeah, like really solid actress. I wasn't really familiar with her work before. I know she's got a bunch of awards and, you know, her acumen's incredible, but I just for some reason haven't really seen her in all that much. But I do sort of take those critics and kind of like the awards, you know, so she must be good. And it obviously was carried into this performance, just unfortunately not on the Shawn Ashmore levels of Conrad, I'm afraid.
Yeah, there we go, guys. That is our ranking of the DPA celebrities, as it were, for the first 4 games. Obviously, we know that Directive 8020 will be delayed, and at one point we'll have to revisit this to see where Lashana Lynch falls on our list. If you agree with our list, let us know in the comments. If you disagree, obviously share your rankings, tell us your opinions. We'll look forward to reading and replying to them. And yeah, we'll sign off there. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thank you guys. See you in the future.